In this video, we will work with schedules, quantities, and tags. We will add information to, for example, those buttons here, user-defined information that we can take out in schedules. We will learn how to use shared parameters to create that bridge between the project, the generic model families, and the tags. So let's try to take out quantities of those buttons that we have here. We have two different types of buttons, the 22 by 95 and the 45 by 45. We start by going into view, into schedules, schedule quantities, and because all our components here are made as generic models, so what we see here is the available fields that we can take out information on in our schedule. So, for example, we want to know how many do we have of those buttons. We want to know what type it is, and we can take the family. But as you can see, we have no length, for example, that will be interesting in this schedule. So we'll come back to that later on. So this is actually what I can take out of information at this stage. So I'll reorder this. I'll have family first, and then type, and then count. Let's see what we get. So what I can do is I cannot filter, as you can see here. I cannot filter on those families, types, and counts. I cannot filter saying I just want to have those wood buttons here. I can sort. So I can sort by family or by type. So let's try to see what happens when I say family. Maybe I want to have a footer underneath, or just a blank line between every family that I have. Itemize every instance means that I'll get a row for each instance that I have in my project. So let's try to continue working with the input data that we can work with in Revit. So first of all, what I'll do is, as you can see when I select this button here, this is actually the information that we have. You can see we have a length parameter here that is somehow hard-coded into Revit. It's not possible to take this information into the schedule, so we need to do something else. Earlier, we discussed the difference between instance and type parameters. Remember, what we see here, when I select this button here, what we see over here is what we call instance parameters. If I press Edit Type, I have information not about only this button that I have here, but all three buttons that we see here, because this is the 22 by 95. So I can add information here in the type comments. For example, 22 by 95 millimeter button. And I drag this to make it a bit longer. What we change here is instance parameter. You can see I have the length here. I have another length here, but it's the same type. So if we go into the schedule and say now we want to have the field called type comments, we move that up, and actually we can now delete family and type. So now if we go into filter and say we want to filter by type comments equals, let's say the 22 by 95 millimeter batten, then I only get those types with this type comments. So now it would be interesting to have a column where we can read the length of each batten here. So what we need to do is that we can select this and we can then say edit family to go into the family editor to change this, to modify this. So maybe you remember earlier when we made this this wooden beam as it was earlier, when we created some dimensions here, if I select this and I say none to this, so it's just a normal dimension we have here. When we created this parameter, remember this box here, what we made earlier was a family parameter. As you can see here, it cannot appear in schedules or tags. So what we need to do is to create a shared parameter file. So I cancel this, I go into manage and into shared parameter. So I'll create one from scratch and say this is we can name it via, and this is just a normal text file, as you can see here, txt. So a very simple text file collecting those data input that we will create now. So under group, we can add a new group. That could be dimensions. And then we can create new parameters. So I would like to have length and then underscore via, so I can see that this is something I have made. So the discipline is common, type of parameter length is okay. So I'll create length, width, and height. So now I have those dimensions here coming from early on when we created the first. So when I select this and I reset so that it's just a normal dimension here, and then I can create from scratch again some new parameters. So now it's not a family parameter but a shared parameter. So I select it and say this will be height here. Okay, I select this, create a new parameter, again type from the shared, that will be width. And if I go into the family types that I have here, then I have some that I don't want to use again. So depth will be deleted, width will be deleted, so I can now see that I have only the new that I have created here. So you see under type comments, the data that I wrote in the project will of course be visible here. So we have this pre-coded length, and we want to have our own length field here. So I say shared parameter, I say select length, and that would definitely not be a type parameter but an instance, because that will be variable throughout the project. So the length I haven't applied any. If I say OK to this and go to floor plan, we already have one here, and that will be the pre-coded parameter. So what we can do in here is that we can say the via length here should be equal to this length up here. So in formula, we'll just write length and then apply. Then you'll see the number will come from up here. And save this. Yes. And we load this into the project. Overwrite the existing version and its parameter value. I'll take this because I have changed some parameters. In the schedule here, we can then add the fields. So we need to create the same shared parameters. So in this schedule, we only want to have the 22 by 95 millimeter batten, so that is okay. So now I want to sort by length. I don't want to have a row for every instance. So I remove this. I would like to have a blank line underneath each. Then it tells me that I have 2 battens with the length of 66 or 660 and 1 with 720. So if I change this, it will of course update my schedule right away. We also have the opportunity to to have a grand totals only, and under formatting we can say that we want to have a grand total or calculate totals of length. Then we'll know that the total length of all battens that we have here is 2 meter 18. I can rename this 22 by 95 millimeter batten. Because then if we see over here in our project browser here, if I want to have the quantities of the 45 by 45, I can duplicate this, I can rename this. And then it's very easy to go into filter and say I want to have a schedule about the 45 by 45 millimeter battens, as we see here. So now I'll prepare this for presentation. So I'll set this up, I'll speed it up, and I'll set this up as a view and prepare it for a sheet. So final step in this video will be to visualize some of the data that we have added to this model through tags. So normally when I add tags, I will normally use the category where the components come from. So if I double click here to access the view, this is a generic model. So if I press tag by category, okay, say we need to lock this 3D view. So first of all, I save and I lock this view. So if I say tag by category, it will look for a generic model tag. There is no in this project right now. So I could load one, but what I will recommend, use this multi-category tag. Again, there's no loaded, so I'll load one. Note that this is this multi-category tag that I will load now will come from the Dan.edu content, but I will use this multi-category tag. And as you can see, when I move my mouse over, for example, this button here, it will take information from this one. So if I move it over here, it will be the 45 by 45. Let's just add this tag here. If something changes, then the tag will be changed as well. So if I take a look at this tag that we have added here, as I say edit family, and I select this label here and say edit over here, you'll see that it will take the type comments parameter field and add what is in that field. So if I close this and we select this button and I go into edit type, it will be this information that will be added in this tag. So finally, I would like to add some more shared parameters, because I would like to illustrate which contract or which craftsman should mount those buttons that we have here. If I select this tag, I say edit family, I go into manage, I go into shared parameter, I add a new group that could be contract. I can then add a parameter, craftsman. That is not a length, that will be pure text, so I change that. I select the label. You can see it has two labels on top of each other. That is because this multi-category tag can also show the type mark. So right now we are editing the type comments. So we select that label and say edit, and then we add this shared parameter that I made before. So craftsman will be a part of the available fields here, and I'll add this. I want to have that underneath, so I add a break here, so we have the comments on top, and then underneath which craftsmen are supposed to do this. And maybe I'll put that into a bracket, so the prefix will be and the suffix will be brackets, like this. I of course save this, I load this into the project, and I say overwrite. And if we then select this button, because right now it shows no information, because this button has no information about which craftsmen are supposed to do this. So what I need to do here is to edit that family. In the type, the family types, we need to add again, we need to add the shared parameter craftsman. So that would be a type parameter, and that can be a carpenter. I copy this because the carpenter are supposed to do also the 45 by 45 like this. I save it, I load it into the project, I overwrite, then the carpenter value will be added to this tag, and we could of course add the same information to those schedules that we have here.